Greetings and welcome to Mission Nuestra Señora del Espíritu Santo de Zúñiga. Translated means Our Lady of the Holy Spirit of Zúñiga. Zúñiga, by the way, has no religious meaning whatsoever. It just happens to be one of the surnames of the Spanish viceroy that authorized the expedition that wound up with the establishment of both this mission and the Presidio de Nuestra Señora de Loreto de la Bahía. This is actually the third location of this mission, as well as the Presidio. The original location was on the Gulf Coast, and the Presidio was established first in 1721, and the mission the following year, in 1722. After being there for only 4 years, both the Presidio and the mission were moved to Victoria County, where they continued to operate and function out of for approximately 25 years or so. The success of the mission at that location was really pronounced, in that not only did the number of Indians who were being missionized or converted increase, different tribes were worked with, but the skills that they were learning really took hold, especially in the area of the livestock. The operation of the mission ranch was so successful that in many circles, historians recognize it as the birth of Texas cattle ranching as we know it today. The irony of it is that in the original Texas, or authentic Texas cowboys, were actually mission Indians. But if they're doing so well at that location, why would they be uprooted and moved once again? And that was to the present location in what we now know as Goliad. The highway that leads to both the mission and to the Presidio is one of a network of roads that connected Mexico City with San Antonio. San Antonio being a hub that served the expeditions going to East Texas. So it was essential then that protection be afforded to travelers, merchants, and early settlers that were coming into this area. And this was done by moving the Presidio, which again covered the military end of it, and then the mission that came with it. The Presidio itself will continue its existence and its contributions to history way into the middle 1800s, and it's especially known for nowadays as the site of the Goliad and Fannin massacres. As far as the mission is concerned, its operation starts to dwindle towards the end of the 1700s, and eventually it is completely abandoned and falls into ruin, and it is not occupied by anyone for quite some time. If you fast forward then to the 1900s, the 20th century, this particular mission is basically a pile of rubble. And one of the programs that was instituted as a result of the Great Depression was the Civilian Conservation Corps, whose mission was to rebuild public sites. This site, thankfully, was put on their list, and so they came here to see about rebuilding. Problem was that all they could really tell was the size of the chapel, simply because of the footprint. The rest of it was, like I said earlier, is a pile of rubble. So gathering forces with professionals such as architects, archaeologists, historians, and engineers, it was decided to use the plans of churches typically built in Mexico during the same time period by Franciscans. So what we have here now is referred to as a representation of what the church would have looked like. All Franciscan churches were built on a east-west direction, so that the afternoon sun would come in through lights or through windows, affording the light for the sanctuary. What we have at this location is exactly that. At the very front of the eastern end of the building is where the principal altar is. And at the principal altar, in addition to the actual altar table where the priest celebrates the Mass, we have a set of wooden niches, or if you will, what is termed a retablo, where we have images of saints or perhaps the deity, the Holy Trinity, all portrayed. Now, the sanctuary is divided by a communion rail, which is very common all the way until the 1960s, actually. In addition to that, our church also has a pulpit. At one point during the Mass, the priest would come through the gates of the communion rail and up to the pulpit and deliver his sermon. The sound in here is very well. There is no need for any amplification. So there would be no problem with everybody that was in the church at the time to be able to not only see the priest in the pulpit, but also hear every word. Additionally, we have two doors on the sides of the building. The first door in this location is actually located on the right-hand side as you're facing the main altar, is the door of life, and on the opposite wall is the door of death. These come into play at certain times. The door of life was used whenever a person that lived here at the mission who was going through religious instruction, when they completed that, they were no longer a neophyte. They would actually be brought through the door of life, taken to the room where the baptismal font is located, and they were baptized. That was full initiation into the church. They would then leave the font and go out through the main doors to be greeted by the community as the newest member of the faith family. The celebration was sure to follow after that. The other door, the door of death, came into play whenever someone died at the mission. The body would be brought in, a requiem mass would be celebrated by the priest, and then the body would be taken out through the door of death for burial. There are two very, very significant signs that indicate which is which. And I encourage you to come to the mission so you can see for yourselves which one the door of life is and which one the door of death is. The church itself is a part of a Texas State Parks historical site, so there are no religious celebrations that are held here. My understanding is on occasion there have been some civil weddings, and I can imagine they must have been a very, very beautiful affair. The church, as we know it, is used only for historical purposes and for interpretation of historical events, such as what we're doing right here on the video. I want to thank each of you for coming out, for listening to us, and I encourage you, first opportunity you have to come and actually visit the place, please do. In addition to the actual church that you can tour, you can also visit our museum and visit the building that houses all the exhibits, or as many exhibits as possible, regarding the skills, the different skills that the Native Americans were taught while here. Thank you very much.